After Tarantino exploded in the early 90s, there were a slew of imitators. Very rarely did you find anybody that was even close to the energy or the charisma that Tarantino had. One that came really close was Guy Ritchie when he released his London gangster movies in the late 90s, early 2000s. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels was a movie that captivated the country. You know, it really took hold and it had this fresh-faced voice, similar to what Tarantino could do. Not quite as good, but it definitely had that kind of vibe about it. The movie's really fast and it zips along. It has quick editing, music cues galore that just needle drop constantly, and we are introduced to a slew of characters that go through this movie. This would follow Guy Ritchie throughout some of his career with some other movies similar to this, where he introduces a bunch of characters who all get embroiled in some kind of twisted game of one-upmanship where they all owe each other. It's a life or death, and bad things are going to happen if they don't get a result. They are under pressure. We meet their four lovable losers who have this idea of doing a gambling game. One of our characters, whose cards in his hands just seems to turn to money, and he borrows money from the rest of his crew, so he has the £100,000 buy-in for this game. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that it's rigged, and he loses the money, owing much more than he expected to, and with only 7 days to pay, they have to come up with some way of getting it, which is where you start to introduce to all the other characters. Now, the movie does feel definitely staged and a little bit gimmicky and typical to sort of Tarantino's stuff in a certain extent, but it has much more humour, it has much more kind of staginess about it, particularly in the language, where we have people who quite often always kind of sound the same. They have that mysterious, almost lyrical twang to their rhyming slang that they constantly come out with. But it is rather fun to watch them come out with it, to have these cool one-liners that in reality would be a head-scratching moment for anybody having a proper conversation. But within this movie, within this world, it's entirely fun. And what we really get is a couple of good antagonists as well. You know, you have Vinnie Jones' character, who is more of a lovable antagonist who is constantly beating up people, but you kind of like and you engage with them. You get the neighbours next door, who are people that are ripping off drug dealers and stealing their hard-earned drug money, who are really dangerous and nefarious, and the people that we hope our guys get the upper hand on. And it's really quickly edited. It's populated with a bunch of side characters, all who are extremely engaging, fun to spend time with, and just you want to revisit constantly throughout the movie. There is so many laugh out loud moments as well. You know, when I think back to Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, before I revisited it, I remembered the quick editing. I remembered the sort of heist element of the movie. What I forgot about was the amount of humour that's through this, and it's humour that lands, black humour that shouldn't really be funny, but is ultimately hilarious within the hands of a director who roughly knows what he's doing. For a debut effort, it's remarkably assured, it's remarkably fun. It has a bunch of character actors who would go on to do greater things. I had a lot of fun with Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. It is definitely dated. It is definitely not as polished a movie as it could be, but it has that raw, gritty edge, showing what Ritchie can do, and definitely alluded to some of the talent in some of the movies that he would get to eventually throughout his career. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels is one that I've loved since I saw in the 90s. And it's one that I really want to go back to almost immediately after watching this. I'm super excited about The Gentleman that's coming out soon, and this was a great precursor to that. I take it you've seen Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. If not, get on it. If you have, I'd love to know your thoughts on the movie. Let me know in the comment box below, and I will see you next time on Man v Film.